The good of the recording. All right. So again, my name is Corey McGregory. I'm one of our career counselors on campus. Today, for the next session of the Boots to Suit series, we'll be talking about the veteran job search process and really honing into a lot of those LinkedIn strategies. I have a lot of these conversations, and I feel like this is really more of a party starter for, trying to think about how do I approach the job search process or internship search process? What are the tools that I utilize? And hopefully opening the door to give you ideas for how can I approach it a little differently. And then, of course, as always, this is more general information. If anyone wants to meet, talk through more specific sort of, what they're going for and how to do effective job searching for that, we can always have a more tailored one-on-one appointment as well. All right, so just to quickly highlight the agenda here, some things that we'll go through. Of course, we will cover things like, recommended job search strategies besides just LinkedIn. How do we want to approach it? We'll answer the question, what is LinkedIn? How do I become familiar with that if I'm not already? LinkedIn benefits, and then of course, some do's and don'ts, just some things to kind of guide us. For the people in here, how many people already have a LinkedIn? Love it. All right. Love it. Perfect. For the recording, everyone raised their hands. That was really great. So recommended job search strategies. So I have a couple of things listed here for y'all. First one may seem very obvious, but have a solid foundation for the jobs that you're seeking. And I think that's so important because I've certainly met with people where they come in and they say, I need to find an internship or I need to find a job. And I ask them what they want to do. And they're like, I'm pretty open. That's going to create a very overwhelming job search process because then you're essentially hitting Houston, Texas, enter. And then it's just kind of trying to screen through all those things. So it becomes very important to really keep in mind, what exactly am I going for? Because if we know, if we have a treasure map and we know where X is on the map, we can know how do I effectively navigate towards that. So again, may seem kind of obvious, but to really minimize that, overwhelmed feeling, it's best to do the work to try to isolate what's my goal, what am I pursuing? Because that's going to change the strategy. So researching alternative job titles. So real quick, I will actually go to this website. ONET is really good for career research. So if you find that you're exploring different career options, trying to think about, what are different things I can maybe do with my degree or, this one, we of course already went over this one last time to talk about how can I build my resume utilizing this. I did give a highlight towards this section, but I want to revisit it for this one too. Just for the sake of time, I'll just be selfish and type in career counselor here. All right. So just a reminder that, as you're engaging in the job search process, whether you're utilizing LinkedIn, Indeed, or whatever job board that you're using, Handshake, you can always look at this sample of reported job titles. And not all the time, I found that some of the jobs that really depend more on a license or that have lots of subspecialties, sometimes it'll kind of confuse. The sample reported job titles like social work's really bad about this one, where it says like mental health counselors, psychologists. It's like those are actually different things. Those aren't social workers. But other times it will give you ideas for what are some different keywords maybe I can try plugging in, because maybe what I'm putting in is only picking up certain things in the algorithm. But maybe if I change one of these words, like maybe from academic advisor to academic counselor, all of a sudden I'm starting to get some other hits. So this is a good site just to give you some ideas there. Now, ONET is currently trying to build out all the different jobs that they have posted on it. It's a pretty good amount that they're increasing it by. I don't know the number, but I know there's been a lot of jobs I've looked up, and it's a new entry that they're currently working on. Those may not have reported job titles yet, but hopefully before too long, the full website will have all of these sort of things listed here to help you.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Can you do the, what is it, when you put parentheses, the Boolean or whatever? In the search? Like if I just want to look at admissions, and I put it in parentheses, if you do a normal search, it will only look for that word and not add the other tags in.
Do you mean in ONET or for this specifically?
Well, in ONET,
Or sorry, ONET or other job search? Yeah, I believe so. I believe we search, yeah, if we do admissions, I just say admissions counselor. I mean, it's gonna pop up everything that kind of has it
Yeah.
to administer, but yeah, I mean, it will pop up to the approximate thing that utilizes that title, yeah.
Okay.
Good question. Right. Taking it back to the PowerPoint. All right, so yeah, being sure to research alternative job titles, try and diversify some of that. Fire on all cylinders, so that's a really big one. A lot of times when I meet with students, they come in and they tell me like, oh, I'm like, what are you doing? They're like, oh, I'm using Indeed. And I have nothing wrong with Indeed. Indeed is perfectly fine. I think the problem is if you're just using Indeed, if you're just using one resource to help engage in the job search, then you're kind of limiting what that pool looks like. So we'll go over a couple of more in-depth strategies, but firing on all cylinders, figuring out what's my game plan. What are maybe like the 3 or 4 different sites I'm going to use, or maybe integrating networking, which is also a very powerful resource as part of the job search as well. Speaking of networking, don't skip out on cold calling. I've met with a number of students where, you have a lot of students where they pretty much just use job boards to apply to jobs, but I have some that are like very old school. I like the idea of calling people. And there was one I was working with specifically not too long ago. And he was looking for, I think he was primarily looking at like something in criminal justice. So he was looking at a couple of different roles, but one was a pre-trial officer, I think. And for that, he was calling a couple of different states about it in different regions. And he called one and they were like, oh, well, yeah, we do have an opening, but you'd have to be 2 weeks out from graduation to apply. And they were like, but, since you're one of the few people that have actually called us about this specifically, we'll actually keep the job posting open until you can apply to it. And then we'll be on the lookout for your resume. And he ended up hearing back from them for an interview. So again, just some side benefits for that. That personal touch sometimes can make a really big difference. Not to mention that I don't have the exact numbers, but there is data out there that supports that not every job is posted. There are jobs out there that you only find out about if you know somebody or you engage in that cold calling, in that networking. So that's another reason why cold calling can be so beneficial. And cold calling will be kind of related to one of the strategies we can use using LinkedIn as well, which we'll go over in a minute. Tailor your resume. Again, I won't really go in depth on that. We already had a whole presentation on it. But I just want to reiterate, that's so important. Sending the message that I'm applying to this job, not just a job, can be so paramount in the job search. And then looking out for events. We have the UHCL career fairs that we always have. Really big ones, looking at all majors career fair. That one, like it sounds, really designated for all of our majors on campus. And that's gonna, and then we also have the internship fair as well in the spring. So we have the teacher career fair too. So we have a number of different career fairs. We have events where we bring employers on campus, like the one we have coming up on tomorrow on Friday. So always being the lookout for that. There's also, if you do utilize LinkedIn, if you follow certain companies or you follow organizations, a lot of times if they're participating in big types of career fairs or career events, they'll also post those too. So, I mean, that's another great way to keep an eye out for some of those events going on. And, with career fairs, which career fair prep could really be its own presentation as well. A good strategy you can take with that, if you do plan on using more of that personal touch, more of that networking and such like that, is you can apply to a position. And then if you have a career fair coming up, you can go just kind of introduce yourself, tell them, what you're looking for. And you can actually tell them, like, I've actually already applied to one of these positions. You put a face to a name. If you've had a positive interaction, they may be more prone to keep a lookout for your resume and help that get pushed across to interviews. So just networking can be such a good piece for it. So potential job boards. Now, there's a lot of different job boards out there, but these were some of the big ones that, I don't know where the mic is, so I'm just going to stay over here. These are some of the big ones that really pop out whenever I engage in the job search. Of course, Handshake, Jobs for Hawks, that's one we definitely want to showcase. A lot of people think Handshake is really just for our on-campus jobs, but that really isn't true. Every time we have an employer reach out to us and they say, we want to post a job for internships or for full-time jobs with your organization, we direct them to Handshake. So it is a good resource to use. And this statement's going to be the same for all of these. If you use one of these resources, today, and you don't see anything that you're like, I'm not really looking for any of these things, don't give up on the resource necessarily. Just try again another day, because job boards, they're revolving doors. So it's, again, it's figuring out what are the 3 or 4 or more, if you're feeling bold, what are the things I want to be implementing as part of my lineup. LinkedIn, of course, we'll go through that here in a minute, spend a little bit more time. I'm a huge fan of LinkedIn, has lots of bells and whistles to it. Idealist, that one's really good if you're really looking at more nonprofit sector. Idealist is going to be a good one where a lot of those organizations do post. Nonprofits are kind of a different beast. I don't know if anyone's looking at those here. But for those, they don't always post jobs. If they do, typically LinkedIn's good, Idealist is good, but for a lot of those, it may be worth cold calling. Then we get into this little group here, Indeed, Glassdoor, ZipRecruiter. That's just an example of some of those. I call them like my generic job boards. Again, they're fine. I think I have a little bit more preference for Glassdoor personally, but that's really more of a preference. You can use them, just don't just use one of those, because absolutely everybody is really leaning into those generic ones. So it's good to kind of go off the grid, use some of these more specialty ones as they apply to what you're looking for. Higher ed jobs. So again, I think another reason why I put stuff like this is, get creative with where you look. So higher education, there's more than just professors. There's lots of different positions in, higher education at universities. So if that's something you're looking at, that's a really good job board to use. Then we also have more veteran specific job searching resources like GI Jobs, TAL Online, and this veteran site. So those 3 are a little bit more veteran specific, but they all are really, really good. Good identifying those jobs and really trying to market that veteran preference. These last 2, these aren't actually Yellow Pages. I'm sure we all remember the giant book, some of us. They have a website. Not a lot of people know that. Yellow Pages can be good if you find that maybe the industry type that you're looking for and you would like to have more of a location focus to it. Like maybe I'm looking for, oil and gas in Houston, Texas. We'll keep it nice and classic. You do look at that in Yellow Pages, it's going to spit out all that location specific things in that industry. And that's another way you can really engage in that cold calling. It also does a good job of compiling, here are the websites for those organizations too, if they do have a website up. Now, related to that, as people are engaging in the job search, something I always tell people is, approach it with an open heart, but also a healthy level of suspicion, skepticism. So if you are looking at a job offer, or you're trying to apply to a position, and you're just like, I've never heard of that company before, I'm a big fan of do the research, be informed. That's why things like Glassdoor, this listed there, I know they have a good function on it where it's kind of like Rate My Professor, but for companies, where you can look on there, you can see how have other people rated this company who have worked there before. Now, as with a lot of things, again, a healthy level of skepticism. If it's a big organization, I think it's worth really looking at where's the data really pointing. Like if you're looking at more of like sort of an engineering job and the company's not rated well, and then you look and a lot of the ratings are like all HR professionals saying that it's not an excellent place to work from an HR perspective, then it's not really painting a picture that it's a bad environment for engineers. It's really supporting more that maybe the HR department isn't a great place right now. So again, you just want to take that, evaluate the full picture of it, but that can be a good way to kind of double check and just kind of get a read on what's the culture of this organization kind of like. Professional association job boards, that's one that I feel like is often overlooked. that has a lot of different purposes to it. I mean, it's a great way to network with people. A lot of times these organizations will have meetings, they'll have conferences, opportunities for you to meet with like-minded professionals. If you join a lot of these associations, some of them you don't have to be a member to look at their job board, but others you do. But they'll also typically have job boards associated with them as well. That can be another good resource to look at. And not really talking about the job search, professional associations can also be really good to kind of double check, does this area really line up with what I'm looking for? So, again, if I'm thinking about, hey, maybe I want to be a career counselor and I go to, the NCDA Professional Association, which is a good one for career counselors. And I'm just like, oh, I'm not sure about it. That looks kind of boring. I need to evaluate, does it look boring because the web developer didn't really do a great job with the design? Or does it look boring because the content doesn't really interest me? So it can also be a good way to help with that career exploration, kind of building up, is this role really something I'm wanting to pursue? So I always recommend professional associations, and if nothing else, something nice to add to a resume to show I am involved with this field. So again, just want to give a shout out to Jobs for Hawks. Already kind of talked about that one, but that one's going to be really good, not just for job searching that way. You can also use it. I mean, if we have any networking events or career fairs, anything where we're bringing employers or just providing info like this, you're going to find it under that events tab up above. And then another good strategy you could use, again, really complementing the cold calling approach. If there are employers that really have connected with us, you can actually search them through the employers tab, and you can go through and see if there are any employers that really interest you. And even if they haven't actively posted on Handshake, you could always check out their website, see if they have anything posted there, or you could also, again, cold call and just see if they have any opportunities available. So you can wield this a lot of good ways. And the other thing, I don't remember if I've said this last time, I imagine not. But the other thing is, if you do utilize Handshake, which I highly recommend, check your inbox. Definitely check that, because you've had occasions where, most people, they think the inbox is just spam, like just random stuff getting shot out. But we've had a number of students where they reply to the inbox message, they get an interview from that, because employers, they can view your profile. They can view, what your resume look like. So in a way, it's kind of like LinkedIn, but for students and alumni. So yeah, so they reach out to you, and if they like you, you can reach out to you for an interview. And yeah, we've had these folks get internships, had these folks get jobs that way because they were paying attention to the inbox. So don't assume it's spam. If you see something you like in the inbox there through Handshake, definitely be open to checking it out. All right, so now we're going to jump into LinkedIn a little bit more specifically. Before we dive into LinkedIn, does anyone have any questions about the general tips and strategies at this point? All right. Let's see here. So I promised before the meeting, some numbers, some data. A lot of people use this. If nothing else, you look at this, it's really utilized by a lot. This data, it was about 4 years ago, so it's not the most up to date, but I think it still really, tells a good story about how utilized this resource really is. I mean, a couple of years ago, this was looking at 810 professionals, 64% of those folks also outside the US, over 3 million companies, so quite a bit. I mean, you can read the numbers there, but basically the story is that a lot of people are utilizing this. And we do hear back from employers that, some employers will say, we really need to see some kind of online footprint from you to kind of move forward, to really believe kind of who you are professionally. So there is more of a push to have an online footprint, which I think mentions a couple things. For one, I think it really encourages the usage of LinkedIn, because then that's a very professional social media piece you can have out there so they can get a sense of your personal, your professional branding. The other thing that I think that really invites you to do is evaluate. If I search my name in Google, what comes up, right? What's the stuff that comes up? Because you want a digital footprint, but you don't want a bad footprint, right? So we always tell people evaluate your social media, no crazy Facebook pictures. If there's any, take them down. If you have a YouTube video or your friends posted and you're like, I'm not thrilled with that, I would strongly recommend trying to get that taken down because employers, they do search online. They do search for folks. So they want to get a fuller picture. So again, not really talking about the job search specifically, but I think it's a big important part of it. So what can you do with LinkedIn generally? Well, a big thing, of course, like I said, it's a form of social media. So creating a professional profile, trying to create that brand of, what's my career narrative really look like? And the benefit of this is, resume, like we talked about, has a lot more limitations on page limit. But with LinkedIn, you do have that freedom to be more comprehensive with, here's kind of the fuller picture of who I am. Now, I will say, even though you don't have a page limit with that, since it's an online profile, I would still challenge you to think about how does this speak to my professional brand? Does it match up with the story? Right. So still want to try and have that marketing approach to your profile. But again, you don't have to feel like I have to be like super short with it. Find jobs, pretty obvious. A lot of people use it for that, but it is a really good resource for finding jobs. For my folks that really lean into career exploration, it can also be a great way to research career paths. So you don't just have to listen to a career counselor giving you, general guidance. You can actually see actively, what have people done to get where they are? So if there's a job that's, let's say, a high up management type role that you're wanting to do, and you're like, I don't know what steps to take to get there, look up people in that role, see what they did. What were the jobs they did that kind of paved the way for that? And if you look at a couple of different people, you're going to start to see a trend for different pathways you can go down. Which, of course, that's going to help you make those career and academic decisions. So, if you're deciding between a couple of different jobs and you have a goal that really points towards one job over another to pursue next, that's going to help you make that decision. Same with academics. If you are considering graduate school, you can help answer that question by looking up people in that role and see how many of these folks appear to have a graduate degree. So does that kind of shape if that's something I should pursue or not? It's a networking tool, right? So it gives us that strong ability to connect with employers and others in fields of interest. So one strategy I always like, and again, I don't think I touched on this last time, but informational interview it can be such a powerful tool, and LinkedIn makes it really easy to do that. Let's just say you're just like, you know what? I want to be a career counselor, but first I want to learn more about it. You reach out to Corey on LinkedIn. You're like, hey, Corey, can I pick your brain, ask you a couple of questions about what being a career counselor is like? And then you can ask me, what's your favorite thing about your job? What's the thing you don't like about it as much? You can ask some of those more subjective questions that are really meaningful to you. So you can explore more info, but even from a networking perspective, if we have a good conversation, you can say, hey, Corey, would it be okay if I reached out to you in the future if I had any other questions? And then later, because with networking, we want to build the network before we need it, right? Because then by the time we need it, we have it to kind of reach out to. Then later down the road, once you have that network, you can reach out to me, be like, hey, Corey, so I really valued our conversation we had, however many months ago or whatever. I was curious, I am actively pursuing this type of role. Have you heard of any leads, or is there any openings in your department that you know about? And, again, if we had that good professional connection there, yeah, I'm going to try and help and try and point you in some directions I know about. So LinkedIn makes that super easy to engage in that process. All right, so some profile tips, just because that's a big part of it as well. A couple of things to really know about. You want a professional photo of you alone. I've seen some folks where they have kind of these crazy pictures, where they're just, selfies and stuff. I think one I've seen, it was super cool, but not LinkedIn appropriate. I think there was someone with like a tank in the background and they had like a gun. It was like, it was, I call it the cool guy pose, right? It looked really cool, not LinkedIn. So just trying to maintain a professional headshot, sort of look. It doesn't have to be like an expensive paid professional headshot, but something that's a good headshot of you that has a really conservative background. It doesn't have to look like a passport photo where it's just a white background, but something that's not gonna be super distracting. Headline with area of study or career ambition. So we'll look at it here in a minute. So I'll talk through that one a little bit more when we actually pull up a profile to look at. Summary, again, that's also a really great way. It's the same principle as a cover letter. It gives you that opportunity to say a little bit about why am I a great candidate for these types of roles? How does the job I'm pursuing fit with the narrative I'm trying to pursue and build? It gives you that opportunity to dive deep into some of those extra things, like what do my volunteer activities look like, internships. Also, there is a spot on LinkedIn, which is really cool, where there's a couple of sections. There's one where you can put your skills that you have, and then other people can go on your profile and they can basically endorse that skill. So again, that's a good way to add some believability to, if you say, presentation skills and you have like 21 people that have said, yeah, they endorse it. For an employer looking at that, it adds more believability behind it. But there's also a whole other section where someone could go on there and just write like a recommendation, write an endorsement that's just on your profile. They just write something out. So again, it just has so many different cool things to it. So when we're talking about really starting with LinkedIn, or really, even if you have one, if you're talking about how do I use it in a fuller way, or just even engage in the job search, I always tell people start with your warm contacts, start with alumni, start with people you feel more comfortable reaching out to. Sometimes networking can be kind of nerve-wracking. So even starting with people like my family, friends, professors, and advisors, starting to reach out to them or other people I feel comfortable with. And then whenever you kind of get in the practice of doing that, you can also try reaching out to just, professionals out in the community and, others at like career events. So it doesn't just have to skip all the way to employers. You can try those warm contacts as well. All right, so at this point, let me go ahead and I'm going to pull up LinkedIn. Aha, did not account for that. One look. I will cut this from the video. I was going to be emailing my personal email now. All right.
It's my favorite too.
That's true. My daughter is Empress of all. Yeah. Should have done this before. Because this happened to me before, but. All right. No, yeah. There we go. We're in. All right. So now with this is going to be the home page. A lot of y'all might be familiar with already. Just to look at the profile real quick, because I think that's going to be an important piece. One tip I always tell people, because whenever I first put this stuff on my resume, I was really annoyed with the LinkedIn URL because it was really obnoxious. It was like LinkedIn URL /C or Corey.McGregory 3478. And it was like a whole bunch of numbers right after. It looked obnoxious. If you don't know this, actually what you can do is if you go to your profile, you can actually go to the top right here and you can actually change what the URL is, at least the cosmetic of it. So we click on that pencil, we can change it. So that can be a good way that if you want to clean up your LinkedIn URL on your resume, especially, that can be a good way to kind of clean it up a little bit. So as far as this goes, I also talked about the headline is a pretty important piece. When employers look you up, when you connect with people, they're going to see your picture, your name, and then this spot right here. That's the headline. I've seen people do what I have, which is really more of a here's my job and kind of my areas of focus. But I've also had other people where they may say, like, I have another career services buddy at a different university, and he's just like something inspirational. I'd probably butcher it if I tried to say it, but it's basically like changing lives through career development. So it's really more of like a motto or a mission. So you can have more of a mission focus, but you can also be very straightforward in this is the role I'm pursuing here. That's really up to your discretion. So after that, and it's a pretty guided process too. But this one, the about section, that's gonna be like that little small cover letter section where it gives you that opportunity to say a little bit about your career story or the things you really want to focus on when employers are looking at your profile. And yeah, then we scroll down, of course, we have experience, which with this one, I've really seen two major approaches to experience. I would probably not recommend just simply putting in the title, the place and the time and just leaving it. I think there's good benefit in just kind of saying a little bit more about what were the things that you did. So for my approach, it's not, there we go. Which for my approach, it's really just an expanded bullet section. Like my resume does not have that many bullets under this for my actual resume. So with this, you can do a bulleted format on LinkedIn. If you do, like I said, it does give you that ability to have more bullets. But I've also seen people take more of a narrative approach with this. So I might say, you know, more of a paragraph of, you know, what were the major things I did in this career counseling role? What was the meaning I really took away from it? So you can have more of like a narrative format for this. I've also seen a hybrid where some people may have a short little paragraph kind of outlining, you know, what have been my big takeaways from this job? What are the major accomplishments, things I've learned? And then under that, they may have, you know, the bullet section. So you can kind of play around with that a little bit. Bag. And then also, I don't know if y'all noticed, you can also, the skills section lower, you can actually attach those skills to where did I use those skills? So that's why you see some of these skills kind of popping up here. If you wanted to be extra to really help connect that, you can. Education, so, you know, similar thing here. I mean, for this, you don't really have to expand too much. I just really put same thing as I would on a resume. I put the university name, the degree type, and then the just graduation date. And I think that's really all you need there specifically. If you do have any licenses or certifications, is a good section for that. Skills, which again, you do have that ability to kind of add different skills. You can get people to endorse you for that. And that's what I have. But what I always tell people is, you know, I try and build my profile instead of the other career counselors to be like, these are how you can have your LinkedIn. But nothing really beats looking up people in the field that you're pursuing and see how did they have theirs built. Do they have certain sections moved around a little bit? Do they emphasize certain things over others? So that way you don't just have to model it after a career counselor, you can model it after people in the field as well. Which leads me to the next thing I want to talk about real quick, which is how can I search, right? So if I want to, you know, of course I can just search jobs, right? Like I can just search career counselor here. Oh, Texas Tech. Going back. That's a joke for folks that saw I went to Tech. Yeah, so you can. What?
She won't let me. Too dry, she said.
Yeah, so of course we can just look for jobs here, which that's great. We have lots of different filters here we can use, setting experience level and you know, date posted, salary, all that stuff. So this one's pretty good. Now there are some jobs where this may not be the best approach. And for that, what I might recommend is trying this instead. You can also search companies. So let's just say you're in a role where you're like, maybe I don't know exactly what I want to do, but I know where I want to do it. Or maybe I'm having a hard time finding the right keywords for the job I'm looking for, but I know where they work. Like we'll just say, pick on oil and gas again, because Houston, we'll use this one. So you type in oil and gas, we're gonna do companies. You can do whatever industry or field. You want to be sure and always check the location because it always tries to get me to go to London. All right, so this is going to give you a good list you can use to search. Like if you want to look in a certain field in a certain location, this is going to give you a good lineup you can really trust in. The problem with using Google for a lot of these things, which that's usually a question is why wouldn't I just Google these companies in Houston, is that Google has become somewhat unhelpful and then it will give you lots of irrelevant stuff as well, ads. It will also throw out a lot of redundancies. So this is a good professional list of a lot of these employers. Now, the good news is also this way, we can see real quick who is actively posting jobs through LinkedIn. So of course, Shell, 347 jobs. You know, now some of these. Yeah, we see nothing for oil and gas journal. Oil and gas is pretty good about LinkedIn usage, it looks like, but you're gonna see lots of companies where they don't have stuff. So let's look at Shell. Let's pretend that they don't have any jobs, right? Don't have any jobs posted, rather. So what you could do, let's say you're researching this company, trying to learn more about it. You look at the about section, you're like, oh yeah, you know, these folks look great. Click on jobs. Like I said, we have jobs here. Let's say, what if we didn't? What if we're looking at an organization, there's no jobs posted? That doesn't mean that there's no jobs. That just means they didn't post them on LinkedIn. So what I would do next, if I was working with a student through this process, engaging in this, is I would say, if there's nothing listed here, at that point, it gives you a nice, easy way to get quickly to their website. Now, every website's different, but the general rules I tell people is when you're looking at this types of stuff, again, Shell is very nice. Not every company is this nice to where they put careers up at the top. I always tell people, look through the tabs up at the top. A lot of times careers or employment, it may be hiding under like the About Us section, or sometimes they'll have a Contact Us tab. Sometimes it's hiding under there. But you can use that again to verify what jobs do they actively have through their website. If you don't see anything up top, the other place I would say is looking here at the bottom. A lot of times they'll have a little menu at the bottom of the website, and if they don't have careers up at the top, they may have a careers button right here at the bottom. Let's say doomsday happens. You look on LinkedIn, no jobs are posted. You look at the top, there's no careers section. Look at the bottom, again, no careers section. Again, that doesn't mean that there's no opportunities. What that means is our last kind of thing of defense there is I need to find out what some contact info I can pull from. If I'm really wanting to pursue this company, what number do I call? And then put it on a list, and then at a later time, go back to your call list and call them. This is who I am. This is what I'm looking for. And I'm just curious if you have any openings, and then just give it to them. Let them kind of answer that question. So it's kind of a tiered approach, but I've found this to be very beneficial. I use this approach a lot with my psych majors who are looking for bachelor's level psychology jobs, because a lot of those that I call them my unspecified mental health jobs. And it's not just something unique to psychology. You see it in a lot of different areas where you'll have 1,000 different names for like one job. So it can be hard to look up those jobs through keywords, just looking for the jobs alone. So this can be a good approach to help look from the company perspective. All right. Let's get back. There we go. All right. So, and I would just rinse and repeat that, which if you're, sometimes what you can also do is, let's say you're exploring a field where you're not familiar with a lot of the big names. On the side here, we'll also say pages people also viewed. So that can be another thing to look at. All right.
Yeah. You can use
So that's. So that's some of that. So the other thing you can do, now this is for networking. This is also for just, again, that job exploration, trying to learn more about roles. Is I could also look up career counselor, and I could look up people. So this is kind of what I was talking about earlier with, you being able to just kind of engage in informational interviews, connect with people in the field. Or if you find that you're someone trying to map out what I want a career pathway to look like, you can look people up this way. We can look at, this profile and see what have they done, where do they currently work. So it's a good way to gather some good information and possibly even connect with people in the field. So that's a lot of the LinkedIn process. As far as like more of the technical pieces, we have a couple more things about it in the presentation, but at this point, as far as practice, building a profile, how to use it to search, does anyone have any questions? Okay. So let's go back. PowerPoint here. All right, we dug deeper. All right, just kind of finishing out with some, do nots, do's. Pop those up real quick. There we go. So some do nots, some of these again may feel intuitive, but I think they're definitely worth reiterating. With LinkedIn, don't send spammy messages to connections. It's the same approach as whenever you're connecting with an employer. If I see one that, and I'm guilty of this, if I see one that says like promoted by LinkedIn or just feels like a mass message, I don't even look at it. Like I just assume it just looks spammy, right? Think about any time you get an email that looks like spam, you probably don't spend that much time reading it. You just get a quick look at it, decide it's spam, and then it's out. So trying to really be diligent about creating more of a personalized outreach when it comes to that. So don't overpost, once a day is good. So just kind of maintaining that footprint, but not, that digital footprint, but not necessarily being the only person that people see on their feed. Asking people you don't know for recommendations or endorsements. So, that's the thing, is you want to be sure it's people that can really vouch for you or, feel comfortable making that recommendation. Endorsements, that's the one where you just basically, it's a number you add to skills, but definitely with recommendations where someone's actually typing something out. That's the same principle as whenever you ask for a reference, or you ask for a letter of recommendation. You want to make sure it's somebody that's really gonna, people can tell if it's just a real basic message compared to someone really believing in somebody and vouching for them. So not criticizing, responding negatively on posts. I mean, you see this a lot on like Facebook and what's Twitter now? X. On X. I'm always going to call it Twitter though. You see it a lot on that, but LinkedIn's just really not the space for it because again, you want to evaluate what does that professional image look like. You don't send messages to multiple people without unchecking the option. Allow recipients to see others' names. So just being very cognizant of that. And then just related to what I said before, don't treat LinkedIn like you do other social media platforms. It's just got a different purpose. You want a really different perspective on it. All right, so what should I do? Do personalized connection requests. So again, you want to send that message that I'm not just looking to make a connection with everybody. I'm looking to connect with this person. It's going to have more weight to it. You have a profile picture. We do hear reports from employers that really don't look at profiles that just really appear incomplete, especially if there's no photo there. So definitely be mindful of that. And I'll give a shout out that we do fairly often, we do have LinkedIn portraits that we do on campus, but for that, you definitely want to check Handshake just to see when we're offering those. Definitely check often because they fill up really quick. So it may get posted and be gone before you even know about it. So it's always good to check Handshake pretty regularly to see when we have that going on. Or you can always call to see if we have one scheduled. Keep it professional, only share what's relevant to business or work. Again, we want to keep a mindset of LinkedIn is a professional space. We want to make sure that brand is really supported on LinkedIn for us. Turn off notifications. Turning off notifications, regularly nurturing relationships. So, whenever you connect with someone, it's going to be better to just kind of periodically check in, maintain that relationship, just like with any other relationship. That way, if you do, reach out to people early and then reach out to them later, trying to find out about opportunities, you're hopefully not going to get the response, who is this? You're going to have that, there's going to be that remembrance there because you took the time to kind of foster that relationship a little bit. Making sure your contact list is open to your connections, and then of course, responding promptly to messages. So essentially just being active, right? Just being on there is a good way to, having that post every now and then on there is going to be a very positive piece. All right. So that's pretty much what I have today. Of course, this is our info. It's just from the hall from where we're at now. Just let's set our time. Now, one more thing I do have for y'all is I am starting a LinkedIn group just for our veteran Hawks on campus. The hopeful goal of having that group is it's going to be a rolling stone where we're going to have, people, veteran Hawks can help other veteran Hawks try and find opportunities. They can share posts on LinkedIn in the group. And then the goal is, as we grow this thing more and more every year, And then that way, you know, whenever new veteran hawks come in, they join the group, they come to these presentations. They can join the network that's been established, and there can be kind of this mentoring piece and connection for our community. So if you are interested in being a part of that, you have the QR code that you can scan to quickly join the group. You can also, it's an open group, so you can also just look up UHCL Veteran Hawks, send a request to join. I'm always happy to get y'all approved and get y'all in. But it's something new that we're starting, so of course that means there's not a lot of people in it now. But it's definitely something we want to try and get out there, try and grow, so we can really have that good professional community for all of our veterans, whether they're alumni or students. I'll leave it on that, but at this point, does anyone have any questions for me?
Specific.
Go ahead. I was gonna say, can you explain the difference between, I guess, your basic LinkedIn account and premium account? Premium LinkedIn account, I guess.
So I'll just flat out say that generally, if you're just kind of a normal person that's just kind of using it professionally and then use it to search for jobs, you know, as well, I would say it's really not, for me, it's just not worth the high payment typically. I don't remember all the things you get if you pay for the premium. I know it's a pretty steep cost. And I know one benefit I would get out of it is you actually, as a non-premium member, have a limited amount of people that you can look up on LinkedIn. So it doesn't really impact normal job seekers or people exploring careers. It more so impacts career counselors or HR professionals, people that are actively looking for different people out there. Because eventually, if I keep looking up, you know, engineers or accountants or whatever to try and see what's pathways they took, eventually I'm going to hit a wall that month that says you've reached your limit of like people you can search for on this. You'll have to wait until next month or subscribe to premium. But I have really never heard of that being an issue for people that are just, I don't want to say casually using it, but basically not using it as like a job function. I know there's other stuff to it, but that's probably the biggest thing I've seen. And I'll just say 9 times out of 10, I don't know if it's worth the cost.
Okay.
Now, if you can get like I do know veterans, I think that's right after you leave the service, but I know the veterans do get some LinkedIn benefit where they do get premium for a certain amount of
No, I
time.
just got an email. I was asking in regards, because I guess for information for you, so I'm keeping up with like veteran benefits and stuff like that.
Yeah,
They're not, I guess they're partnering with LinkedIn to give pretty much, if you have a veteran, or not a veteran, an email associated with the VA, you can actually just upgrade your LinkedIn to a free
yeah. I
premium.
mean, if you can get it for free, do it. I just don't think, I don't remember what the cost is, but I remember I was like, it's a little bit more than I think I'd want to pay. And I use LinkedIn all the time, but even I'm just like, I don't know if, I don't remember what it was, but I know it was a lot more than I wanted to pay. Like if it was like $5 a month or something, I think I'd be like, maybe, you know, I mean, I use it a lot, but it was not $5 a month. Yeah. Any other questions?
Is there a difference between like, you're saying like people on LinkedIn and employers, like you apply for a job on LinkedIn, are they gonna, is there, like say someone has it like really private, the profile, is that what they're gonna see? Just that, like maybe like a name and everything all blanked out? Cause I'm trying to look at my settings, I haven't been on this in a while.
Yeah, I forget all the logistics of the privacy settings myself. I mean, I would imagine just like anything, if you do have really restricted privacy settings, then yeah, they'd be limited in what they can see.
All right.
Yeah, I would just say, just evaluate it, make sure the content in there is stuff that, you know, like I feel okay with this kind of being out there. So I would evaluate the content and then just open it up as you feel comfortable so that people can view you. But I mean, of course, you can still search for people. I know that there's a mode where you can basically, because whenever you look someone up and you go to their profile, they are alerted that you looked. So something to be mindful of if you start, you know, poking around. But I do know there's a setting where you can turn that off, but then, yeah, then you kind of become invisible too. So you can't have both. So,
It's probably an exercise in when you're looking for a job full blown. And then once you get that job, you kind of put it into cruise mode and limit it some.
Yeah.
Cause I could see where it might be negative if you had a full blown profile and I'm your boss and I'm like, why are you still looking for a job? We just hired you, you know?
Well, and yeah, I mean, you have different things with that. Like, of course, I see a lot of recruiters, I see a lot of companies, career counselors, we like, career services, we like posting on LinkedIn as well, but of course, those lead into job functions. You can still be very involved with LinkedIn without necessarily using it for the job search capacity, because yeah, you can still use it to build that network, connect with people, and I mean, whether or not you plan to utilize those connections to go another direction. Yeah, I mean, I think that's different. There's also a button somewhere on there where you can select like looking for work or not, right? Like, I think that would probably be like, hey,
I've been told a couple times in interviews that they were hesitant to hire people who they felt wouldn't be there long term. Right, so like, if you apply for a position that you're overqualified for,
yeah,
the thought process, at least from a couple people I talked to, is that you're gonna look for something else because you're overqualified, so you're just taking this job kind of, and they don't wanna hire you because of that. And I do know, just to follow up on the thing, when I did that court case, it involved LinkedIn in some respects. And the salesmen were using LinkedIn from the company, so they paid for like a full blown, and they would look up agencies or businesses, and then they would cold call them for sales. So that's what they were using it for from a business standpoint. So they'd be like, hey, you want to buy some copy machines today or whatever,
Yeah.
at least copy machines.
it has a lot of uses.
Yeah,
Some are nicer than others. But no, yeah, it's great. And you're right. I mean, this kind of leads more to interviewing, which I know this isn't really what this workshop is about. But yeah, you do want to send the message, like, I'm looking for this job, not just like, I'm not just looking for the door out before I've even gotten the position, right? Because employer, yeah, they don't want to hire someone that they feel like is already looking for the exit before they've even.
especially entry level. They don't want to put money into you, train you, and then you're like, hey, see ya. That's why I was just wondering if there was a negative to using it long term.
I think it's just how you use it. I mean, you can utilize it from a sense of, like, if you're really passionate about, if I am really passionate about career counseling, so me sharing posts about, like, here's news about the conference coming up, or here's like some theory, research stuff going on, like, whatever, I could share that, but I feel like that's, that wouldn't be perceived negatively compared to me posting like, hey, does anyone have any job opportunities out there? When I'm connected to my boss there. Any other questions?
Just not a question, but kind of a heads up, because I've put in some applications or internships.
Yeah.
And asked for a LinkedIn link, and I tried putting in just full link, and it keeps up coming with errors.
Oh,
So
really?
I played around with it, and I finally got it to work, but I forgot how I did it.
Oh,
You
okay.
just can't put like that, like you go to your profile and like copy it and then throw it in. Like, it's happened to me like, I don't know how many times.
Was it like the whole HTTPS thing you had to cut off? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I have my resume in there, then it tells you to fill out everything all over again.
Yeah,
And at the very end, it says you want to put in a LinkedIn profile a link, so I try to put in this here, but it won't, it keeps coming with errors, I can't submit it, so I forgot how I cut it. I don't know if I put in just LinkedIn.com or just the my address, but I had it, I did something, but I forgot to work.
well, that's a good thing to know. I mean, I haven't heard of that, but I mean, obviously it's happening.
Just a heads up for anyone.
It might autofill part of it. Like, if you're putting a LinkedIn link, it might just want the narrative part and not at linkedin.com.
It might,
Just cut
Yeah.
that off, because it just assumes.
yeah. No, that's strange. If they ask you for the link specifically in the link,
Yeah, but-
funny,
But there's a difference between the URL versus the link to, like, if you say share on, LinkedIn, it gives you an abbreviated link, not the giant UHC.
Just a heads up, I mean, I know, it took me a while to figure out, but I forgot.
Good info. I've never received that feedback, so I've never heard that.
Going back to resume,
Let's do it.
just because have you seen any with URLs on them? Like
Yeah.
personal URL?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah,
I saw that, and I was like, maybe
With
put that,
LinkedIn, like the LinkedIn URL on a resume.
yeah, or a tiny URL where you can shrink your URL, you go on Google and do a tiny.
I'm really hesitant to mess with the font size too much.
No, it's called tiny URL.
Oh, it's okay.
That's, no, that's the function. It's called, the function is, like, if you do a drive on Google Drive and you share it, it makes this ginormous.
Yeah.
And you can click on, there's a function button that says, make it a tiny URL, and it shrinks it down. It's kind of like a QR code, but it's a URL
Okay.
script line.
Interesting.
I just have never seen a resume with the QR, so I thought, man, I wonder
Oh,
if people are.
the QR code. No. I would not, I thought you meant just the URL, not the QR. Yeah, QR code, I wouldn't recommend that. Just
Like, you know, at the bottom of my resume, here's a QR code to my LinkedIn or to my personal, whatever. I don't know, to my additional data or to my references or something. I don't know.
Yes. Yeah, but just from an applicant tracking system standpoint, I probably wouldn't put a QR code. I don't know for sure if those would be a problem for applicant tracking systems, but I always like to lean into, if you don't know, just say don't do it.
I would do it. I just,
Yep,
it
not-
came to my mind when I saw this, I'd be like, why would you?
Well, I mean, images and icons, that just feels to me like that wouldn't be read very well. So, yeah, URLs are fine. You know, LinkedIn profile URL at the top is recommended that way.
Well, you know, that could have been another issue with them. Maybe the software is not tracking URLs.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Sorry, I'm monopolizing. Miguel answer some questions. He's like, yeah.
Tomorrow's event gonna be open not just to veterans, correct? That's just-
Yeah, so I was gonna give a final shout out to that. Yeah, let me pull up I thought I had a slide on it, but apparently I didn't make the right presentation to have that. Yeah, so we do have the Boots to Suits kickoff event tomorrow. It's gonna be our My Story panel, where we'll be bringing veterans on campus from different employers. You know, namely, we have a couple, we have some from Boeing coming, Axiom, Enterprise, and others, and I think the panel is up to 9.
Is it really? Is it that many?
Yeah, well, a lot of people wanted to send many, so I think it's 9. I may be wrong with that. It may be 7.
Maybe some people could sit in the audience.
It's fine.
It's 9. Okay, I was not wrong. So we have 9 different employers coming, so I don't think I'll run out of questions for them.
Well, Axiom,
Yeah, you should have just made it a job fair.
Yeah.
I mean, that's basically what it is.
Well, I mean, so the idea is it's gonna be Q&A, so I'll have some guided questions moderating the panel, but then we'll leave time for folks to, you know, ask their questions as well, just hearing about their experience going from military career to civilian career, and what that transition would look like for them, what worked for them.
I don't know, I'll
what
get the
things helped them
Sure.
find success. So we'll have those folks going on. Lunch will be provided there. I believe it's a pasta bar is what we're doing for that. Yes, you have a nod from the person in charge.
Would it be un-PC to bring a small resume, like a one pager and hand it out? I mean, like, say hi to somebody and say, hey, can I give you my resume?
Shot, you know.
I don't,
Stick hard.
I'm not gonna do it. I'm just saying for these young people, maybe bring one or a bit. I used to carry generic business cards.
It is, I mean, it is an opportunity to network with the employers there as well. And I mean, some of them are there just to kind of share their experiences. Like I know we have, you know, one Jonathan from HR, he'll be part of that.
Right.
You know, I don't think he's gonna be actively looking for people to.
He
join
might.
the team. He might.
Have you seen our job website?
Yeah,
We got a lot of
people
positions.
Like the people from Boeing, they may probably be more likely to be looking for veterans as well for some of those positions. So it is also a networking event. So like I said, there will be lunch provided there. It is tomorrow. We'll be sending out flyers on social media, but just so that y'all know, it's gonna be from 11:30 to 1:30 tomorrow. And it'll be in the forest room. That's where it'll be. And trying to think of, oh yeah, and we do have prizes there, so I believe, I know Salma keeps telling me, correct me if I'm wrong here. We'll have a basket, a door prize basket through a drawing for folks that are students who are in attendance of that event. We'll also have a basket for